I don't know how much Spanish you know, but did you know that El Limon stands for the limon?
I'm almost certain that's wrong. Almost, because yes, my Spanish, not that great.
See,
Better than any other language that I speak, including English, but still pretty terrible.
we?
Uh, non?
Not in here, sir. This is a Mercedes.
Hello, alleged human, and welcome to the Chaos Lover podcast. My name is Ned, and I'm definitely not a robot. I'm a real human person who consumes semi Mexican food and then feels a little bit bloated afterwards. With me is Chris, who is also bloated.
Ready for a nap? I'll give you that.
Oh, that is absolutely true. I will
Because
say,
why would you just have like 2 tacos when you could instead have like 10 tacos?
my trip to Chipotle was one of the clearest examples of advertising working. I don't watch many things that require viewing ads, but sports ball is still a thing where you have to watch ads. And there were many, many, many commercials for Chipotle. And then I just wanted it. So, wow. Good job, everyone, all around.
We nailed it.
Also, as is tradition with any of those commercials, the reality did not match up to what I was hoping. And
Well, yeah, it was Chipotle. Even their stock is a disappointment.
I really should just gone to El Limon. I guess that's the story. If you happen to live in the Philadelphia area, just just go to El Limon. You'll thank yourself. Maybe. I mean, there is the
And,
day afterwards.
and if you don't live in the Philadelphia area, I am sure that there is a El Limon like store near you.
One that is locally owned and not Chipotle.
It's
So
like a self help book. Find your own personal El Limon.
yet
Maybe more
another
of a,
book that
yeah, it's more of a self help throw pillow.
yes, we already have enough books and memoirs to write. I don't see that we need to add yet another one to the stock. Uh, but on a totally unrelated note, this is our predictions episode.
Yay!
Everybody is sitting on the edge of their seat to find out what Ned and Chris think is going to happen in 2025, or at least to know exactly what won't happen in 2025 based off of our previous accuracy.
100%, if not
0% of the time.
better.
uh, I had some predictions, but Chris, why don't you lead us off?
Eh, no, we'll do a couple of yours and then we can switch because
I mean, yeah, if you have a
mix it up a
plan.
little bit.
Okay. All right. So maybe I'll do like two and then you can do two and we'll figure it out. Okay. So my first prediction is that RISC-V will be pushed forward by China and general dissatisfaction with ARM. So
Does general
yes,
dissatisfaction live in China?
um, probably.
Is he in charge of the Risk Army?
Anyway, I'm back on my RISC-V bullshit again. I think that RISC-V has a chance to succeed beyond ARM's wildest dreams, but that is going to take time and effort on the part of the RISC-V organization and its surrounding ecosystem that needs to support it. It's not enough to just build the chips. You have to build all the things that the chips connect into and then, write an operating system and software that can use that chip. Granted, if you're writing something in a relatively modern programming language, there's probably a compiler that will support that architecture. So it's a little bit more about the operating system and the actual hardware. But as I mentioned in our predictions review, there is now a company in France that is offering RISC-V servers as a service if you want to kick the tires. But there are a few more interesting developments I think we need to focus on. It turns out that RISC-V is already in GPUs and IoT devices. Apparently, I know. The callers are coming from inside the house. Apparently, some of the GPUs out there from NVIDIA, not the actual GPU, but some of the controller chips on the board are actually RISC-V to help them avoid paying the ARM tax
Right.
because they like money. Google actually pulled support for RISC-V with the current version of Android and all the development kits, but that's actually good because they're refining that support and planning to publish it again once some of the updates to the standard have come out. China is doubling down on RISC-V because honestly, the world is forcing it to, with all the import restrictions and pressure that's being put on various chip manufacturers. And people have tried to purchase ARM several times and failed. I think Qualcomm made a run at ARM once, and so did NVIDIA, mostly so they wouldn't have to pay the licensing tax anymore for making their chips. That didn't work out. And since, well, especially NVIDIA loves money and would like to make more, they are already in the process of switching over to using RISC-V on a lot of their stuff. So, my prediction, an actual prediction here, is that we will see the first crop of RISC-V phones coming out of China this year, and that RISC-V will be introduced to the infrastructure of AWS or Azure as a custom chip, probably something to do with AI.
Because doesn't everything.
At this moment, unfortunately.
Allow me to introduce you to my toaster, powered by AI.
I wish you were kidding. That's an interesting choice considering the whole Cylon connection. But I have one more, and then we'll jump over to you. WebAssembly as a service on the public cloud. This one I'm sort of pushing forward from last year. I really thought that one of the public clouds, well, specifically, I really thought Microsoft was going to buy Fermion and offer spin as a service, and they didn't. I think what's actually more likely to happen this year is either Azure or AWS will offer running WebAssembly packages as a service, similar to the way that Azure Container Instances, Azure Functions, or AWS Fargate or Lambda work. Or is it Amazon Fargate? I'm not going to look it up. Uh, what I mean is a serverless option for running WebAssembly packages. You can already technically run them if you spin up your own VM or if you spin up a Kubernetes cluster. But if you're looking for a truly lightweight option, I think one of the major cloud providers will have you covered in 2025. And bonus prediction, I think Cloudflare will also offer WASM as a service in 2025.
Right. And that's the thing to remember, or at least to understand, right? If I understand correctly, it's not like you
Questionable.
run easy now. It's not like you run a container that runs WebAssembly.
Right.
You just run WebAssembly all by itself.
You can put it in a container, but there's no need to.
Right. So in terms of what it does, it's kind of like the next generation. So VMs and then containers and then WebAssembly, maybe not for everything, but for a lot of things.
Yes.
At least that's the promise.
That is the promise, that the runtime that WebAssembly functions in is heavily sandboxed and safeguarded. So you can treat it kind of like you treat containers today and run a whole bunch of WebAssembly sandboxes on a single host.
Right.
Yep, that's the idea. And I think we're going to see it from a major public cloud and Cloudflare. Yay.
And you'll do an episode about it. Perfect.
All right. What do you got, Chris?
Wait, do you actually want me to go?
Yeah, I
Really?
suppose. I mean, I've got like 6 more, but maybe you could get one in edgewise.
Well, no, yours are probably going to be fairly quick. Why don't you just power through?
Really? Okay. Someone please, please, please buy Nutanix. Really, Cisco. Cisco. You should have done this last year when
It could be
Nutanix was like,
anybody named Cisco.
anybody named Cisco. Listen, uh, TikTok is not TikTok. Good God. Nutanix is now worth twice what they were at the beginning of 2024. So you might have missed the boat a little bit, but you can still buy them because you have a ridiculous amount of money. And I see nothing but growth for Nutanix in the future. They have great tech and terrible leadership slash marketing. So go buy them. Stop working on WebEx or whatever the hell you're doing now and just make a whole bunch of money.
You're definitely not wrong about the marketing part, I feel. Because if you talk to people outside of technology, they've at least heard the term VMware before.
True.
If you ask them what Nutanix is, they will probably say it's a disease based on eating too much holiday candy.
Oh, I was going to go with a health supplement like Athletic Greens.
Oh, that might be better. I was trying to play off of Nutella, but I couldn't remember the word in time.
Fair enough.
And
Yeah, it
now all of a
definitely
sudden, yeah.
it sounds
Yeah.
like a multi-level marketing scheme for like the next big health drink and supplement.
Ooh, that could be a bonus prediction. Cisco will buy Nutanix and they'll make it with an even better name.
Well, it'd be hard to do worse, I guess. You want to do one now? Or should I just keep going?
Well, you're on a roll.
All right. Did you write any predictions?
Of course I did.
Okay, sure. Google broken up. This one is a little controversial, but I'm going with it. Maybe due to, I don't know, wishful thinking. Hard to say. Lena Khan, the soon to be former head of the FTC, might already be, not sure. She really headed in for Google, not without reason. She's been working since her appointment in 2021 with the Department of Justice to investigate Google for antitrust and anti competitive activities. In August, a federal judge ruled that Google had, in fact, violated antitrust law regarding their monopoly over the search market. And it looks increasingly likely that Google will be forced to split Chrome into a separate company. That's just one of several remedies suggested by a filing from the DOJ, which also included prohibiting Google from paying third parties for exclusive search rights, requiring Google to syndicate its search results, and possibly splitting off Android as well. The official ruling of remedies is not expected till spring of 2025, at which point Google can submit their appeal and this can drag out some more. Now, with the coming regime change, you might think that a more business friendly environment was about to descend, and several of those remedies will never make it to the final judgment. And I think you're wrong. If we were dealing with an administration with any kind of, I don't know, coherent philosophy, then yes, I would expect, given their conservative bent, that you would have reduced regulations and a retreat by the FTC and the Department of Justice on any actions against big tech. However, the governing philosophy of the Trump administration last time around was to favor whoever sucks up to Trump the most, has his ear, and promises to kiss him on the head and tell him what a special boy he is. Google is not that company. And I think that Trump low key hates Sundar Pichai, partly due to racism, of course, but also partly because Sundar is the kind of like smarty pants elitist pseudo liberal that really chaps his ass. So maybe Google isn't actually broken up in 2025, but it's going to be damn close. And I fully expect the remedies to be handed down by the federal judge to be punitive to Google's bottom line. And that's to say nothing of all of their troubles over in the EU.
The where?
The European Union. Ever heard of it?
Is that one of the American states?
Um, God, it might be by the end of 2025 when we're done our expansion into Canada and Greenland.
So that'll make it our 57th state. And finally, Obama's sentence at the end of the 2016 rally will make sense.
That's right. That's what it's all been leading up to. All right.
So speaking of the EU,
Ooh, yes.
what did you have to say about Meta?
God damn it. Fine. Meta will be fined heavily for being just insufferable. God damn it. Meta has already had the largest fine of all time under GDPR levied at them in 2023 to the tune of $1.3 billion, which seems like a lot. Unfortunately, for a company with an annual revenue of 135 billion in that same year, a fine of 1.3 billion is kind of just the cost of doing business. Not only that, but Meta's revenue has actually grown an estimated 23% in 2024. If you think about that, and if you think for 1 second that Meta is going to be deterred from being an absolutely terrible company that abuses users and their data for extreme profits, I have a bridge in the metaverse to sell you. Huh? Really pretty.
I'll allow it.
Okay. In November of 2024, a federal judge ruled that Meta has to stand trial for an antitrust case about their acquisition of Instagram and WhatsApp. Now, honestly, Meta should never have been allowed to purchase either of those companies to begin with, but it was a different time and a less antitrust focused government. The case in question was filed in 2020 by the FTC, and the two acquisitions were made in 2012 and 2014, but the wheel of justice does turn slowly, and now in 2025, we're going to see an actual trial. I have little to no doubt that the discovery done in preparation for the trial will reveal how much Mark Zuckerberg truly sucks, and how he intentionally and knowingly was building a monopoly. We'll likely see a ruling and possibly even remedies by the end of the year, with enforcement coming in 2026.
See, I think that you're being wildly optimistic,
On the timeline?
especially on the timeline, but especially on everything else.
I don't know,
Not
man.
the whole Mark Zuckerberg being insufferable part. That's you nailed that one.
Yeah.
But
I
I'm just trying to learn from last year where we made some judgment and law-based predictions that maybe we should have revisited the timeline.
Oh, no, I'm just going to keep making more predictions about what the government's going to do.
Such
Cuz
as
TikTok. I think TikTok is going to be effectively seized by the US government. As a quick reminder, President Biden, remember him? He doesn't. Signed a bill in April. I'm sorry, it's low hanging fruit, but I can't help myself. They signed a bill. He signed a bill in April of 2024 that would ban TikTok if it wasn't sold to a non Chinese red US company um, within 9 months. TikTok sued to block the bill, but so far there has been no relief in sight. The date of the ban was supposed to be 9 months after signing, which would be, hey, January 2025. However, there is a provision to extend the date by 3 months, provided that significant progress has been made. It hasn't. Apparently, Trump has asked the Supreme Court to delay the ban, which they'll almost certainly do, since at least three of them, three, maybe four, hard to remember, owe their current position to Orangina. I'd say no shade to Orangina, except very much shade on Orangina. Orangina? That's hard to say. It's fizzy, it's vaguely sour, and not at all refreshing. If you want fizzy orange juice, just make a mimosa like a normal. My guess, my prediction, is that Trump will leverage his position in office to broker a deal with one of his billionaire cronies and force TikTok to sell off the company. China isn't going to like that, so Trump will probably have to relax tariffs or do something else to appease them. I know he ran on hiking tariffs, but remember that anything he said during the campaign trail, is like stuff Chris said when he was drunk in Belize. He didn't mean any of it, and he hopes no one remembers, but ultimately, he doesn't care.
I was in Belize?
Yes. So I predict TikTok will be effectively seized and sold by the US government by June.
So I had to look up what Orangina is, and now I'm upset with you for making me look up what Orangina is.
It's the most disappointing thing you can be served if you were expecting orange juice or orange soda, because it's neither, and it's a disappointment for both. Shall I continue?
Well, you're on a roll.
Fine. Uh, Microsoft will add S3 API support. Maybe. On a slightly less political angle, I am predicting something that Microsoft adds support for the S3 API to Azure storage. S3 is an open standard supported by Google Cloud, MinIO, Cloudflare, and a bunch of other cloud and on prem solutions. They all support this S3 API for object storage. There are even existing open source projects that will do the translation from Azure Storage's API to S3 and reverse. Just do the right thing, Microsoft, and adopt the S3 API for your storage too. You can support your stupid API as well, but just just do it, please. This prediction is based on nothing, but I'm going to say that Microsoft adds S3 support in November of 2025 at Ignite.
This is going to be interesting because probably a week ago, I'm basing this on my memory, which God help us all.
Fair.
Apparently, I was on vacation. Satya Nadella said something along the lines of, "We're going to see the end of SaaS as we know it."
I do recall him saying that.
So I'm wondering if any of what you just said is going to make any sense with what he said.
I didn't read any more than that like tagline. So I don't know what the nuance was behind that statement.
Sure, it had something to do with AI.
Oh yeah, almost certainly.
Ooh, AI storage toasters in the cloud?
I'd invest in that.
Store all of your data in a toaster,
A smart toaster.
a smart distributed toaster
Yes. I think we have a business plan we can take to
as
a
a
VC.
service.
Yes. No, not as a service.
No,
Because
oh no, no,
that's dead.
as a subscription.
There it is. Trademark. All right, I have one more prediction. So I'm going to do that one.
Might as well.
I will. OpenAI
Whenever
will
you're ready.
OpenAI will absolutely eat shit. This might also be in the wish fulfillment area, but I think the bubble is going to pop for OpenAI in 2025. You can already see some of the cracks emerging with several major outages at the end of 2024, and at least one problem this morning when I was trying to get it to summarize Lena Khan's cases against Google. It couldn't do it. It couldn't log me in for like 5 minutes. That was fun. OpenAI has been immensely successful in selling a vision of AI and also burning tons and tons of cash in the process. For 2024, OpenAI expects to see 5 billion in losses on 3.7 billion in revenue. Sam Altman claims that they will bring in 11.6 billion in sales for 2025 based on hopes, prayers, good vibes. Even if they do manage to bring in that kind of revenue, they are still burning cash at a prodigious rate. And if you think it's expensive for them to run GPT 4.0, just wait until you see how expensive Sora is. The newest offering generates video clips, which are mostly terrible. I tried it out. Getting it to generate people playing Jenga was hilarious because they were building it from the wrong direction and it collapsed in reverse. It's hard to describe. Maybe I'll include a link to the video. I can't even fathom how expensive it is to generate those videos at scale. I bet their costs are going to skyrocket in 2025, in part because of Sora, but also because they're still trying to get GPT-5 out the door, and they'll need even more hardware to do so. You know what isn't getting any cheaper or more plentiful? NVIDIA hardware. OpenAI successfully closed a funding round in October for 6.6 billion at a $157 billion valuation, which is stupid. 6.6 billion won't even get them through half a year. At the same time, OpenAI has had a string of outages in the waning days of 2024, with 3 major outages in December alone. Not sure what's going on there, but people will only put up with outages when there's no other alternative, and that's no longer the case. Anthropic has Claude, Meta has Llama, Google has Gemini. All of these models are breathing down OpenAI's neck, and China is making waves with their DeepSeek model. OpenAI and ChatGPT may be the ones with the first mover advantage, but in the long term, ChatGPT may become like Kleenex or Jello, a generic term for any LLM. In fact, I think it's already halfway there. In 2025, OpenAI is set to restructure their company to be for profit and kick the nonprofit branch to the curb. Any goodwill they have built with the public is quickly being burned, and I suspect they'll be outpaced by new entrants. I'm going to say in 2025, we'll see even more OpenAI outages and a new funding round at reduced valuation as they continue to burn cash, and there will be no new model release. And
Yeah.
that's my predictions for 2025.
I mean,
Your
I'm
turn, Chris.
the one. Well, before we get there,
Okay.
the
Yep.
one thing that I'm curious about, you say that they're going to have a new funding round at a reduced valuation.
Yep.
How could they possibly have a successful funding round if they miss their targets like we're predicting that they will? Like,
FOMO.
wouldn't people just say thanks but no thanks? I'm going to go throw my money at Anthropic.
I will remind you that Elon Musk managed to drum up $44 billion in funding to purchase Twitter. Somebody thought that they should put money into that. So somebody will put money into OpenAI regardless of the fact that they're losing money and missing their targets. I just think that the valuation is going to be a lot less than 157 billion by, this time
Right.
2025.
No. Okay. That makes sense because people do still play the lottery.
They do.
1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6 has never been the Powerball number yet.
Yet.
Last one's based on a true story.
Okay.
So
Now it's your turn.
you're finally finished.
I am. Finally made it. Took me a while.
I had okay. So the first thing I wanted to talk about.
Well, I might have one more. No, I'll hang on to it.
Now I have to start from the top.
Okay.
So the first thing that I wanted to talk about.
Yeah, that's enough from you, Chris. I think we got the general gist of where you're going with that. We do have one more thing that I want to cover. FYI, our survey results are in. I just closed the survey for 2024 and I wanted to share them. First off, thanks to everyone who responded. For those that didn't, shame. You're going to have to march through the town square naked, ringing a bell. If you want. In your town square. Anyway, most people have been listening to the podcast for at least 1 year. Although someone claimed to be listening for 5 years or more, which is impossible.
Well, not totally impossible.
Is that like in dog years? Are dogs listening to the podcast? I mean, I only can assume that they are. Good doggies. You all get a treat. How are people finding out about Chaos Lever? It seems like it was either a mention on another podcast or recommendations from friends. Thanks, friends. You're super. You also get a treat. In terms of the length of episodes, basically everyone was happy with the current length of our episodes. Although there were a few masochists who wanted them to be longer. No guarantees there, but I don't know. You could like set your podcatcher to run the episodes at half speed, I guess.
Or you could subscribe to our side channel called And Here's Another Thing, where we just rant incoherently for 6 hours a week.
You say that, and someday it will actually exist. Guarantee it. Most everyone agreed that the podcast is either getting better or staying the
Yay.
same.
Mm.
Although there was one naysayer.
Hmm.
And because I can't let negative comments go, they did not like the split of news and main into 2 separate episodes a week. Sorry? I don't think we're changing back, though. Kind of like it. And also, I paid a guy to do all the intros for the tech news of the week. So I got to use those.
I thought that was your dog doing a funny accent.
Oh, if only she. She's not British. Swedish, actually. Anyway, what about people's favorite episode? Well, it might be a case of recency bias, but a lot of people loved the telephony history episode with Sarah Autumn. I agree. That one was good. Least favorite was a history of passwords, which I personally feel offended by since I wrote that one. I will be showing up at that person's house demanding that they listen to it again. That's not weird, right?
Probably not as weird as me thinking that I was the one that wrote it and was like, oh,
No, you did something about cryptography that people liked.
that's like a
Sure.
password, but different.
There was some additional feedback asking for more tech stories from our days in the trenches. Now, Chris, I don't do real work anymore, as we all know, but you do. Maybe we can tell some old horror stories about flying off to distant and boring places with not enough fiber cabling, or running a multi day DR exercise where people absolutely fail to follow basic directions. Is the bubble up? Chris, is the bubble up?
What's a
Do you know
bubble?
what? Oh, I'm having flashbacks now. So maybe we should do an episode of like tech horror stories. I think people would enjoy that.
It's a thought.
We also got a few topic suggestions that I think we should explore, like comparing TPUs, NPUs, GPUs, and other PUs. I don't know. They all stink.
But
Thank you. Felt good about that one. Another request was for a history of chat and messaging software and why they all suck. And then a history of programming languages, which I don't think that's a single episode, but we could try to start close to the beginning.
we could
See how
do
far we get.
like a series of programming languages in a roughly chronological order.
That sounds too organized.
We'll just start with Swift and pretend no other languages exist.
Okay. Lastly, for future guests, we had suggestions of Russ White, Ivan Pepelniak, and Brian Cantrell, as well as any other old school tech people with good stories. Also, the Spice Girls, which would be amazing, but alas, their manager said no. Zigga zigga ah. You know who Russ White and Ivan are, right?
Yeah, they're two of the original Spice Girls.
Yeah. Scary Spice and what's the other one? Sporty Spice? I think
Um,
Ivan's the scary one.
I'm telling him you said that.
Brian Cantrell is one of the founders of Oxide Computing, so I think he would also be an excellent guest. I'll reach out, see if any of them wants to come on and talk about historical things.
Sounds good.
Yeah. Again,
Less work
thanks
for
to
me.
everyone. What?
What?
What? Fine. Thank you to everyone who participated in the survey. If you have suggestions for shows or guests and you don't want to wait for the next one, there is a contact form on the podcast website, chaoslever.com, or just ping me on LinkedIn. Someone also asked about t-shirts and stickers. We don't have a merch store. Maybe we should. I don't know. But if you want stickers, we do have some stickers. Just reach out through the contact form. I'll mail you some.
Make sure to include your credit card number and social security number, and a number of addresses that you used to live at. No
Yes.
reason.
And maybe the name of your first cat and dog. Just for fun.
If it's Butch and Cassidy, you get stickers for half price.
Half a free. Well, that'll do it. Hey, thanks for listening or something. I guess you found it worthwhile enough if you made it all the way to the end. So, congratulations to you, friend. You accomplished something today. You can go sit on the couch, talk to your dog about chess, and maybe do some impressions in a British accent. You've earned it. You can find more about the show by visiting our LinkedIn page or just go to chaoslever.com, where you'll find show notes, blog posts, and general tomfoolery. We'll be back next week to see what fresh hell is upon us. Ta ta for now. People are going to keep waiting to hear what your predictions are.
I said all I needed to say.